So this is the year we're going to take the plunge and try some decals. Well, a real decal system. Please look on Sakai, and you will see a thing called Easy Decal Example. That's it. It's bigger than the other things. I'll explain why in a second. Okay, so let me give you some background. So, like last year, we sort of did decals. So I made my own system along the lines of a particle system and general outlines that you have. It's kind of a cycling-based system. And we had it so that when you shot and you hit something, what I did was I had a prefab, which was just a quad, which was mostly transparent and then had a picture of a bullet hole in it. Again, when you'd hit, it would get the normal of the surface, or maybe back to the camera. I can't remember which way I did it. Probably from the surface. And then I would take a tiny step out from the surface, and I would spawn that quad in front of the surface. So, you shoot at the wall, it would get the hit point, spawn a quad a little bit out. What could be wrong with that? Any ideas?
It's pretty far from the scene. If we found that you actually get sea fighting.
You could possibly, but actually you didn't. So, good guess, but not correct. There's one obvious bad case. Well, kind of obvious.
You spawn it the way, just the way it spawns, in the air or something. It's kind of like.
That's kind of it, kind of. All right, I'm not exactly sure what you're thinking of. So what happens when I shoot right at the edge of the door jamb here? Right, it spawns a nice bullet hole, which looks like it's half on the door jamb and half floating in the air. Okay, so that wasn't very nice. Well, it turns out that, when you're dealing with particle systems, it is a smoke and mirrors kind of a thing, no pun intended. That's what particle systems are for smoke, but, I think, it's not real. It's not going to be perfect. You're going to put up with some stuff. The issue is whether your users can put up with that stuff, whether your stakeholders can put up with it. And it's very much the same with decals. So I'm going to show you now a professionally made decaling system. So I really wish there was one that was built into Unity, but I think we have no chance of that until they move fully into this futuristic new rendering model, which is really bloody cutting edge there, and I don't want to go there this year. So your only options are to go and pull in some third-party products. But actually, again, there may be some pain involved with this, but some of this, for sure, a fraction of it is healthy pain. You should understand what's involved with this. So this Easy Decal thing is a thing you have to buy. So I bought it. I have a feeling somebody's going to tell me I'm wrong, but my feeling about this is that I see our class as not different from, a team that's trying to build a product. And when you are a team trying to build a game, you don't have to buy the thing one time per person, you buy it one time for your company. So with that argument, I'm buying it one time for all of us to use for stuff for this class. Okay? Now, if you have other uses for it and you want to go use it for, I don't know, thesis or other stuff, just independent stuff, go nuts, but I think you owe them $30. That's my impression. Don't get me in trouble in any case. Please don't say Professor Darkin gave it to me and said, do whatever you want with it. It's yours, okay? Because that's probably not right. Okay. Now this is, I think, the dominant decaling system that's on there. There's actually two that are used. Decaling is a major area of functionality. So you could look at Unity and say, that's kind of weird. That would probably make it onto the list of deficiencies of Unity, serious deficiencies of Unity from a professional game development point of view right now. So these packages are heavily used packages. So you'll have some frustrations dealing with them. Whatever you get from Unity, you will get at least a little less, if not a lot less, from these independent developers of these packages. But understand that this is like the best case. The worst case is just like that you take your code from the lab and you could literally do this. You go on Unity and say, sure, I'll sell it to people for $10. Sure, here's my code. There it is. I'll put 3 lines of description up. Go ahead and take it for $10. Okay, what kind of customer service are you going to be willing to provide to the guy who gives you $10 for your code? Probably not a ton. You're probably not going to write a manual We're not going to answer emails every day, okay? So understand, I mean, that's literally, the bar for putting your stuff on the Unity asset store is pretty low. So you will see the full range of qualities there. Okay, but anyway, there are two main decaling systems that are there. Again, they're heavily used because there aren't good alternatives at the moment in Unity. One of them is called Decalicious, which I also bought, and I'm pretty unhappy with that. So to use Decalicious requires you to use deferred rendering. Did you by any chance talk about that in the introductory computer graphics class? It's an interesting idea. The idea with deferred rendering is you change the rendering pipeline completely such that all of the kind of the texturing and lighting is done way on the back end. First you figure out where all the surfaces are, and then you do all the lighting and texturing at once in the back end. Now that's different from the model that I hope you learned in the computer vision class. It's been around, computer graphics class. It's been around forever, where you do that on an object by object basis. Yes, for each object you first figure out where its geometry is, but then you light and texture it. Okay, and then that goes in your front buffer, your frame buffer. It also, you put some depths into your depth buffer. Then you go to the next object. Okay, deferred light again. One more time. The deferred model is you do everybody's geometry first. Okay, and then only once do a lighting and texturing pass on the back end, and that actually really helps for stuff like decaling, because all the geometry is there. So to try to make a decal, not be hanging off into the air, but actually trace the contours of an object becomes much more straightforward. Now the downside of that is you got to use deferred rendering. Are we using deferred rendering? No, we're not. It's a different path. It's not one I usually use. You'd have to change all your cameras and stuff over at a minimum, and then you'll see some other weird stuff, because I think that's not the main path that Unity kind of pushes you on. So that would make everything a little more complicated from this point on to the rest of the course. That's why I decided against Decalicious and in favor of EVDecal, which is the other package I think even more heavily adopted than Decalicious, and one that also supports a deferred rendering model, but most importantly for us, supports just normal rendering. Okay? So all that to say, by preamble, have you guys managed to download it? I don't feel like time. Yeah, it's downloaded. All right, awesome. So I'll open up my version of this. Now again, so what I put in here is like literally everything you get when you just go download the thing, plus a little bit, plus my little bit of demo magic on top of it. But I haven't managed to do very much. In fact, this might be a somewhat short lecture because I will just happily give you time to just go poke at the thing on your own, because I haven't had a whole lot of time to do it myself. Okay, so what you're seeing when the project, your project won't open up like that. You're going to have to go, because you only have, it's going to have to rebuild itself. But if you find the sample scene, so let's see how this is actually organized. For whatever reason, it's got a lot of stuff here. If you just go into under assets, there's scenes. Under scenes, there's sample scene. If you go into sample scene, you should see this. Okay. So these are two EV decals. That's ED. Okay? And you see kind of the model is that it kind of has a projection direction, and where this box indicating that the decal is there is not necessarily right on top of, or you're touching in any way the actual decal. It kind of projects forward and looks for the surface where the decal is supposed to go and puts it there. So that's what you're seeing over there. And there's a couple of these things, and this is one, I think this is one that's mostly an example that came with them. There are other examples in code in here, and my example code I'm going to show you is really just a kind of a slightly simplified version of some code that ships with it. There are some demo scenes that the EVDecal people have made. I'm not super impressed. When I walked into the room and fell through the floor, I stopped being very impressed with the demo scenes. But maybe your mileage you get out of it will be better than what I got, and you'll be more impressed. But it does do, there's several demo scenes, and it demos a lot of functionality. Again, decaling is not just used for, like bullet holes are a big use case for 3D virtual kind of training simulations for the military, understandably, but it's not the only use case at all for decals. So for example, just like graffiti on a wall, all kinds of things, like minor marks, just to make the environment more interesting, are pretty common. And let me ask you, if it's a bullet hole, you probably get that's a special case, because probably that shouldn't be there until someone actually shoots and you need to dynamically put it in, right? But graffiti, probably you're not going to be modifying that while the simulation is running. Why would we want, or why could someone possibly want graffiti as a decal versus just, you got the textures, when you build the model, just draw the graffiti on? Why?
Because it'd probably be, I don't know.
Yeah,
The
take a
one
guess.
I'm thinking about is if you're using this to train guys in a counterinsurgency sort of environment, you want to have them see the graffiti, you want them to talk about it, do whatever, and then you can engage in a conversation in the simulation, and then somebody goes away and removes the graffiti, and then you don't have to jump into the texture to get it off, and you just click the button that says graffiti gone.
Okay. I kind of see what you're thinking about, and I think it's valid as far as it goes, but actually I'm asking the broader question, just for anybody making it. Why would someone, if you're just making a computer game, so you're not worried about any training consideration, you're just making a computer game. It's an urban environment, you want graffiti on your walls of your buildings. So why are you going to do it with a decal versus just baking it into the texture? Yeah.
I was going to say, because if you bake it into the texture, you lose flexibility with, using the same prefab to create walls around a scene or somewhere. And
The
with
same
decal,
material
exactly.
used on the scene. Yeah, I mean, if your brick texture now has graffiti on it, it has graffiti on it everywhere. Furthermore, when you're putting your bricks on the wall, you're probably going to be tiling it, right? It's going to be repeated, so if you put graffiti on over here, you're going to get graffiti tiled all over your wall. It's not going to look right, okay? All right, so again, so decals are, a major area of functionality. You will use them in a static context where you would go and build them and apply them over here. Like this one, you see, as you can drag it all around, you can scale the thing, you can rotate it, but you'll also do it at runtime. Okay. All right, let's maybe take a quick look. So I've got a sample scene. I want to talk you through this scene. This is all that I understand. I think I understand halfway decently how to use this for our big use case, which would be like a bullet hole. But let's just see if we can get their sample scenes up. So if you see under sample scenes, I'm not seeing what I want. Let's see. So maybe under easy decal, possibly. Where do they hide these? I always have a problem finding these. Oh, under new assets, that's like their company name, easy decal, the product, demo scenes. Okay? All right, so let's see what we have. Okay, I'm going to save my scene. All right, so here you can just kind of see. Okay, so here you have a scene with some decals on it. This looks suspiciously like it's maybe in a deferred rendering mode. This is one of the things I noticed with deferred rendering. The lighting is different, so it tends to look dark until you adjust it. You can totally adjust it and make it look good, but let's just see what we got here. What if we go into play mode? Let's see. Okay, not entirely sure everything that's being demoed here because I only have rudimentary. Okay, now you've got the whole thing that you get. You're welcome to look on their website and see what they have. There's a forum about this product. There's a manual that's there. I'll point you to it before. It's very brief. Okay, so by all means, go beyond my minimal knowledge and get as far as you can get, given your time. Let's see what else we have here. Yeah, so this I find a very weird use case. So they're using it to do stuff that would normally do like with lines and stuff in there. I actually, yeah, well, the heck with this one. I can't even get it to work now. I know what this is for, though. They kind of show paths using a decal. Now that one I'm clueless about. Why would you do that versus it does? Okay, maybe it's a visual thing. Maybe it looks better. It does look pretty good. If you look on their website, you will see what that one's about. They also have, let's see, maybe this one. Okay, so here you go. You've got some graffiti on a wall. You've got here's your brick texture, going around. You have some shooting there. You got some sparks coming off when it hits. It's not half bad. Shoot the wall. Works about the same way. Okay, now when you get bullet holes that overlap, that's highly questionable behavior. Okay, and also, this is nice and smooth and round, so you won't see the worst case. It's really, the spear almost always looks fine with the bullet hole, but I'll show you. Let's go back to my sample scene, and I'll show you. All is not well 100% of the time with decals. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, let's go back to my scene. Okay, so I'm just showing you. Yeah, obviously I can't talk you through everything that's in there because I don't understand it myself, but it's there. That's what they offer as examples, so get what you can out of it. Okay, let's go back to my sample scene, which I actually halfway understand. Okay, now if I grab this thing, okay, so what happens when you get to an edge here? Let's take a look. Okay? Now, yeah, look at that. Not totally, actually, I'm not understanding why that's truncating short of the corner. That is a bit strange. Look at that. Interesting.
It's kind of like a navigation mesh where it keeps you from the edge.
Yeah, I'm not sure why they think that's even a good idea. All right. All right, let's jump in. So I've got some dynamic behavior in here too, and I can talk you through that a bit. Okay, there isn't a crosshair, but so there's a bullet hole that I made, just to show you that you can have what you can do it too. Now the logic here is very weird. So like every other bullet hole will fade out and get recycled. See, after 5 seconds. Okay, so here's the thing. So you're going to have to decide. So bullet holes are a thing. A lot of you probably will want a bullet hole or something similar in your environment, some kind of mark to show that something happened, some kind of kinetic event happened. Do you want it to be permanent? Okay, it looks better permanent, but now every time the user shoots his weapon, the performance of your scene degrades, just that much. And, it might be fine, especially these days, because it probably can tolerate quite a number, but go ahead and experiment. You can start out this way, but what I'm going to show you is it's easy enough to do what many computer games still today do. They just won't leave those marks up forever. They'll just leave them up a certain amount of time because, again, so if the user's staring there looking at their bullet holes when they go away, it looks corny as heck, right? But are your users really going to stand there and look at their bullet holes? They'll want to see it right away to give you feedback. If you missed, you'd like to see where the impact point was. You'd like to have some visual reference for that. But once you see that, 5 seconds later, are you still looking at the bullet hole? No, probably not. Your back's probably to the wall. You're probably 100 yards away at that point. So what do you care if the bullet hole disappears? Okay. Anyway, you're going to have to make that choice. All right. So I left it in. Their demo does the same thing, and I thought that was actually kind of cool because that way you can kind of see both how it works and the mechanics for both ways. Oh, let me actually stay in the scene for a minute. Now, what's that?
You talk about leave some of them on, but some of them fade.
Yeah, every other one will fade. You can see there's a toggle there. All right. Now the other thing I want to do is just let's get out to the edge here. Now mine, you notice, come all the way up to the edge. Actually is not as bad as I've seen. I thought it was with this system, which I really need a crosshair. Only this really is not as bad as I've seen. Now that's not realistic, those ones, but you can see the decals are always perpendicular to the impact surface. Well, you don't have to do it that way, but if you choose to do it the other way, I'll show you the logic for it. I think I've got logic for it. It's in my code. Well, you do it at your own at your own risk. All right, so what's going to happen if you actually keep the bullet hole looking round from the perspective of the camera, which will look better to you from where you shoot. Now, guess what's going to happen? What's going to happen if I keep the bullet hole looking around, okay, and then walk around the wall and look at it from the side? You know, it's going to be like a black streak on the side of the wall. The shape's going to be totally distorted. The texture is going to be stretched. I don't know. You tell me. I don't know what a grazing bullet impact actually looks like, but I kind of doubt it's going to be a realistic representation of it. Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's everyone's happy with this, right? Okay. Good. So let's get out and let's go to the infrastructure and the code. Okay. So this uses the same walking controller we've been using, so that's cool. It's got a script container here where I dropped the script in just for the lack of another better place to put it. Let's actually take a look and make sure you're happy with it. And then that's pretty much what I have to say about decals. Oh, we can break apart my decal if you want. I can show you how to make one maybe, or maybe that's a thing for tomorrow, more the hands-on day. I don't know. We'll see. All right, so here it is. That's the whole file. And you see we're just pulling in one extra thing. PsychoForge.decal. Why is it Psycho? I don't know. Maybe this is a company that, maybe it's a one-guy company renames it every week. That's probably what it was. Okay, so you see it's a mono behavior. All right, so what do we have? You've got a decal prefab. I'll show you how to make those. So it's nothing magical. It's public. You can drag that in. You can easily replace mine with the standard one. That isn't what I did. I think the one that's actually there is the one I built. Okay, the start function is doing nothing. Okay, this bool t equals false. T is just your toggle. It's going to say whether the thing should fade away or not. Okay, and every other shot, it's going to change values and change behavior. And then we're just looking for a left mouse click event. Interestingly, they triggered on button up, which I thought was kind of interesting. I don't know. Why would you do that versus button down? I don't know. But I just followed their lead. Okay, this I thought was kind of cool. They didn't bother linking in the camera as a public object here. Apparently camera.main. If you just have one camera, we'll just give you the right camera. Now, once you build a more complicated scene where you've got cameras all around and you want to be able to switch between the cameras, okay, keep this camera.main. It's not going to work. You're probably going to have to use the normal a public camera variable to drag the right camera in, or get the transform in there some other way. Setting up for the raycast, so you're familiar with this. The ray is generated from the mouse position, okay? So that, no, it's generated from the camera. Ray, to the mouse position, I guess. Okay, anyway, it should be the same as what we did before. I mean, one slight difference here, we've got the ray, we've got this parameter that's going to give us back the hit information, and then what this thing is if you look at the API, it's just the max distance. So beyond 200 meters, you're not going to get any impacts. Probably pretty safe to get rid of that. Okay, now this is the way we're actually instantiating the decals, and I think it's what I'd recommend. Here's the other mode. If this bugs you too much, try this other one. Okay, they were both in their demo. Okay, so what this one's doing, okay, is we've got a hit, right? We've clicked and we actually have hit something. Okay, so this gets the game object that we've hit. Here's the point at which we've hit, right? It's a vector 3, the point at which the bullet, has struck the surface. This is the normal to the surface, I believe. Okay, and then this uses the this is my prefab, my decal prefab. So it builds a new prefab. It puts it at the hit point. It points it out in the direction perpendicular to the surface. Yeah.
Very nice when we're working with cube.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Now, if we're using a human, what collider does it hit with? Is it the capsule collider? Is it the...
Yeah, I think it actually, I'm not sure. I think you could actually make it hit the mesh, if I'm not mistaken. If you really wanted that, and you might with a person. I mean, you're probably not going to put a bullet mark on a person, though. But you might, do like a bullet effect or something like that. Another common use for decal. so that's better. You could actually even go super fancy, and you could, if you hit the person, you could. I'm pretty sure the hit information, depending on how you set up the ray, I'm pretty sure you can set it up so it will give you multiple objects. So you could actually say, it would hit me, oh, let's keep going till we find a solid object. Okay, the ray then intersects back there, and then I put a blood mark back there. I think that's totally doable. Not even, certainly, I would expect you guys could probably get that to work pretty easily. Okay, now the other way that they do it is that this spawns, does the same thing, spawns at the hit point, okay, but the way they orient the decal is back in the direction of the mouse ray. See that? Minus the mouse ray direction, normalized to be uniform. Okay, so again, we can mess with it. Actually, let's give it a shot. Let me see what you think. Oh, well, let's just finish those. We don't have to come back to the code. Right, so here you see every other time t changes value, and if t happens to be true this time, then we say don't fade. The fade is the default behavior, well, because we've set it up. I'll show you on the prototype. It will only be the default behavior if you've set that to be the default behavior, and that's what's set. And in fact, that's probably the safer mode. Do it with fade. That way, even if the user's going nuts, shooting everywhere, he won't completely kill your sim. All right. So let's just try this other mode here. See if it's any good. I don't think I tried it on this product. I did on the other one. Let's try. Whoop. Okay. One of the names is wrong. Should this just be Ray, maybe? Let's try it.
Decal.
Name decal does not exist. What do we call ours? Decal prefab or something?
The easy decal, so the bottom one. I think you just need to copy the easy decal equals the project.
What is it throwing up on here? I'm actually not clear on that.
Line 30, you commented on line 30.
I see. Yeah. All right. So we would need to, if we want to be consistent, we just need that little bit of code. Thanks. All right. Okay. Yeah, plenty of yellow code in here. Though they are updating it. I mean, they've already advertised it's supposed to be consistent with the 2019.1 Unity. So that's a good sign. So they're clearly on top of things, and they know a new version has come out. All right, so let's go for the cute angles here. All right, so you notice from our point of view, it does look round, but when you come over here, is that really what you want? You tell me. I mean, if nothing else, I think the black doesn't work. The black could maybe lighten up. I would maybe buy it as just some kind of a grazing mark, and you get like some funny shape stuff too. Look at that. Okay. All right. So you're going to deal with some amount of ugliness. I mean, it's a smoke and mirrors thing. It's clearly has its limitations. So the question isn't whether it's perfect. It's never perfect. The question is, can you, through your own insight, make it good enough for your stakeholders? All right. I'm going back to the other one because that one's better. All right. So what other stuff? Okay. So I want to show you how you set up. So I want to show you. Let me step you through. Let's take a look at one of the decal prefabs, and I'll step you through how you make it. Since we're on that subject, and then tomorrow. Not sure. We'll definitely do at least a little more with particles. We'll just kind of see what makes sense. All right. So, good. So the prefab, let me show you the one that I made. So the stuff that is in my demo scene is kind of at the top level under assets. Okay, and this web text decal, this is the one I made. All right. So we'll just look at it first, and then I'll kind of show you A to Z how you go through and make it. It's pretty easy. Okay, so this is a decal. I just want to show you the salient pieces of it. It's got a material, right? So having a good material that works properly. You shouldn't assume that just any material will work. I had some failures that happened when I kind of learned to use their shaders that they provide, the ones that were used in their thing, and then my problem started to melt away a bit. Under constraints, this is where the fade out behavior is set. So if you uncheck this box, and it is unchecked by default, then you will not have fade away no matter what you do in the code. Well, unless you go through the trouble of finding that setting somehow in the code and checking the box in code. Okay, you won't have it. All right. Okay, so let's go through the process of actually making one of these. I think that may be the only way to convey what needs to be done. Okay, now they do step you through this in the very short manual they provide, which is there somewhere in the ezdecal subdirectory. There it is, ezdecal.doc there, and it does a little more than I've done, but it was also missing some things. I mean, and this is pretty normal. All right, so let's go. So the first thing you do is you create an empty. Okay, and then from the empty, you go and you find the ezdecal component and plug it in. Okay, all right, so there you go. And then the next thing you're going to need is a material. Okay, we're going to need to make a material. All right, so what I did was, if you just go and you Google for a bullet hole texture, you will get half a dozen decent choices. So I just did that and downloaded one of them. I then went onto the website that I guess we all use to make a normal texture, and because this shader actually, I don't know if you noticed up close, but it's normal texture. So if you get your eye up close enough, you get the 3D effect. So works pretty well. So I went and generated the normal texture on that website. That's where that thing comes from. Okay, and then of course you got to drag both of these things into your scene here. The bullet hole, in both cases, Unity will guess wrong on the settings. So for this one, you will need to say alpha is transparency. Okay, so it actually knows. Otherwise, you're going to end up with white around the object rather than transparent. You won't like that. When you drag in the normal map, you will need to say that it is a normal map for the texture type. That one, how would Unity know that? So I don't blame them at all for guessing that wrong. Okay, so you do both of those things. Actually, Unity is smart. I forgot to do that, and then Unity said when I went to, and it worked, but it worked fine anyway. And then when I went to save the scene, it said, can't save. You didn't set the texture type properly when you imported the texture. Do you want me to fix it? Yes. Okay, fixed. And I didn't have to do anything. So I thought that was pretty impressive. Okay, so these are just textures. They're not materials. So the next thing you need to do is build a material, right? So we can go create new material. Okay. Now again, the shader, this is not necessary, but again, just being conservative with what little time I had to set this up and try to get it working, it was much easier for me to follow their path when I didn't do this, and I tried to use like a normal particle texture. For whatever reason, it wasn't working. Probably my fault, but here you go. So in fact, I didn't mess with any of these other than the standard one they use, which is this first one right here. Again, remember, as with Unity, they're just following Unity's lead. They have a metallic path versus a specular path. I mean, do you want to say how metallic an object is, or you just want to directly say how shiny it is? Those are slightly different, okay? Metallic is the default that Unity uses, so I just kind of went along with that as well. So I can say like that. Okay, now if your textures are there, they're all loaded up and ready to go. You see it can take a bunch of different textures. Take a metallicness texture. I didn't bother with that. You can take ambient occlusion. I didn't bother with that either. But for your use case, you might need those. Okay. It does take a color and a normal map texture. Let's use those. Okay. So I'm going to go select, and I don't actually remember Which one is mine? Bullet hole A, that is not mine. Where is it? It should be the, oh, bullet hole ping, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so let me do this. Let me just drag it over so I know I'm using mine. Boom. Okay, so there it is. There's the one I downloaded. Then I can take my normal map, drag that over. Boom. That's done. Now the next thing you're going to find is that your bullet holes are going to be really shiny. Yeah, that looked really wrong. You're getting like glossiness in the black of the bullet hole. Whoa, that looked awful. Okay, that's because of the smoothness here. So get rid of that. At least tone it way down. Okay, and that should pretty much do it. Now you have a material. Okay, so now I ought to be able to go back to my empty. Okay, and I got my new material here. And where's the slot? Right here. Okay. So new material. Where are you going? All right. That. Okay, there you go. It's already working. Okay. Now, same thing. I've got to say, when I went to do the shooting, I was like, hey, no problem. I know how to work the transforms in Unity. And I was just trying to set up the transforms myself to make the bullet hole point out, and it was a pain in the neck. It was not working. I ran out of time before I fixed it, and then I realized, oh, they provide their own projection function, and their projection function just kind of does the right thing out of the box. So I recommend that's what's in my code. So that's what I recommend you stick with. Okay, any questions about this stuff? All right. I'm going to leave that here. At least, if you don't do anything else, at least I would open up that document and I would see what they think are their main points. Maybe visit their website and see what they think, because there could be something you have in mind for your project down the line that would help you, but I didn't get to it. Okay, so please take a look. And if it's something that's really awesome, please make us all smart about it. And I think that's what we ought to do today while this is fresh in your minds. Okay? And then tomorrow I will do some amount of additional hands-on stuff. There's at least, I don't remember, was there anything I really left hanging out there from your guys' point of view in the particle system coverage yesterday? We did a fairly decent, quick one over the top. There's at least one thing I want to do with you at minimum. Well, two things. So one thing is we ought to take a look at some of the more complex particle system examples they have, just so you understand. There's quite a bit of sausage making going on in there, and you should at least be aware of that. And then maybe we could build a particle system from scratch. I will certainly expect you to be able to do that, so maybe quickly go through it. Doesn't necessarily take much time. Maybe mess with a few more of the parameters, whatever we think is interesting, and we'll call it a day. If anyone needs to or wants to, there might be. If we end early, I'll try to be prepared this time. So if someone wants to get checked out tomorrow, sure, why not? Save yourself coming in Friday. I've got to be here on Friday. I will be here if only to answer possible questions. Okay, anything else? All right, we're done.